आज स्वागत नित्य गुरुवर संत शुभागम आइए। अध्यात्म विद्या दिव्य ज्योति सोम रस बरसाइए। दोष दुर्गुण दूर करके शुद्ध हंस बनाइए। भेद गम गति ज्ञान गर्जन शक्ति द्वार हटाइए। खुले द्वारा शब्द सागर भक्त जन अनवाइए। जन सदा फल विश्व शिक्षक शानयान बचाइए। विश्व शांति नाम मंगल परम गुरु को ध्याइए। वर्ग द्वंद्व अशांति दूर कर भाव भेद मिटाइए। सार्वभौम समष्टि सत्ता ध्यात्म राज बनाइए। भेष भाषा भाव जगमय ज्ञान पर दर्शाइए। समृद्धि सुख शांति धरातल स्वर्ग भूमि बनाइए। विश्व शिक्षक जन सदा फल नीति स्वर अपनाइए। Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for devoting your time here today. Recently, I had a chance to listen to Mr. Vijay Kumar, a software engineer based in New Jersey, USA. Mr. Kumar spoke on several topics related to thought, mind, senses, and beyond. What you will hear over the next half hour or so are excerpts culled out from his elaborate talk on these issues. Let us lend our undivided attention to Mr. Kumar.
What is thought? कर्म है तीन प्रकार. Karma or the action is performed by three means: by the body, by the mind, and by the speech. The karma by the body and speech has a physical expression in the outer world. It's explicitly reflected outside physically in the form of some perceivable change. But how about the karma of the mind? It does not have a direct physical expression outside. Rather, what it manifests into inside is called thought, which is preserved in chitta as vritti. Thought is of various natures: chitta driven thoughts, memory; intellect driven thoughts, reasoning; mind driven thoughts, imaginations; and ahankar driven thoughts that reflect into action. We'll talk about these later. The chit chat that runs in the mind is the expression of these various thoughts, and they are expressed in the mind through organ is called Vakhri Vani. But that is the final stage of the speech. Sadguru Dafaldev Maharaj says in Swarved, Parajo Mooladhar में हृदय में पश्यन्ति, कंठ में वही मध्यमा मुख वैखरी अंति. Speech originates from the source called Mooladhar, somewhere in the head, in the form of Paravani. It then comes in the soul, in the heart, as Pashyanti Vani, and it is then physically expressed outside by the speech organ as Vakrivani. So the pre-stage of Vakrivani is the Madhyamavani, the chit-chat, the blueprint of the speech that runs in the mind. So in a nutshell, the karma of the mind is called thought, which has a mental manifestation in the speech form as Madhyamavani, the voice of the mind. And the thought is of various natures: memory thought, reasoning thought, imaginative thought, and actional thought. Thank you. Well, how does it rise? This is a big question. I'm a software engineer, and I happen to deal with various kind of processing in our software programming. We receive file which is either uploaded from web or somebody will give a shared location. I pick the file from there and process it. Sometimes I also process the data which is already there in our database. We just query those data, get it into the memory, and then start with some logic. In our human machine, this human being, the human body, is also like a computer. And there are certain, inner organs that does this processing within ourselves. So how does the thought rise? Thought is the piece of work by the mind. So for any thought to rise, mind has to be functional. Let us understand how mind gets functional and how it produces each of the various thought of memory, reasoning, imaginative, or actional. Sadhguru Sadafaldeji Maharaj, who established Vihangam Yoga in 1924, writes in Swarved, मन चेतन जड़ नहीं बने, मन मध्यम परमान, तीन करण मन से जगे, मन अनु एक स्थान. The first line here that says man chetan jad nahi bane, man madhyam praman, that say that the mind is neither an inert entity nor a conscious entity. It is rather an intermediate entity that connects consciousness of the soul with the inert subjects. The matter of interest in this line is the fact that the mind has the quality of associating with the consciousness of the soul as well as with the inert subjects of the senses. When it associates with the consciousness of the soul, that is when it becomes active. It becomes active with the consciousness of the soul. And after that, it works like a live conscious entity. And without consciousness of the soul, it will be like idle, like dead, inert object. So the aliveness of the mind is all because of the consciousness of the soul. And this aliveness is essential for the mind to produce thought. How does mind get alive? I repeat, when it receives consciousness from the soul. Now, to understand how various natures of thought arise, let's ponder on second line that says, Teen karan man se jage. This needs to be understood to learn about how a particular type of thought arises. Teen karan man se jage. It literally means that the other three inner organs are activated by the mind. And with the use of these other inner organs, mind produces various kinds of thoughts, of reasoning with the help of intellect, memory with the help of chitta, and actional thought with the help of ahankar. And mind, of course, has its own power of imagination. Let us elaborate these various types of thought little further. So many things to understand here. So there are 5 organs of actions and 5 sensory organs. Together they are called 10 outer organs. Apart from these 10 physical organs, outer organs, there are 4 inner organs known as the mind, the intellect, the chitta, and the ahankar. Mind, intellect, chitta, and ahankar. Out of these 4 inner organs, the mind alone has the capability to work on its own after receiving the aliveness or the consciousness from the soul. However, the other 3 organs, the intellect, the chitta, and the ahankar, are inner tool that only mind makes use of in generating different nature of thoughts. So what are those different types of thoughts? For example, chitta driven memory thought. That is the result of mind receiving subjects of the past from the chitta. It is the combined work of chitta and mind. Memory thoughts are the memories running in our mind. Where does memory rise from? It rises from its store called chitta. After looking at certain subject outside, several related thoughts start running in your mind. These related thoughts are rising from nowhere but chitta. It does not necessarily need to be a physical subject. Memory thought also include your unfulfilled desires, temptations, attachments, and everything that has happened in your life. Chitta is like a camera that captures every moment, every dimension of your life. So this is how the memory thought rises from chitta. It's the chitta that drives memory thought. Well, the second type of thought is like intellect driven reasoning thought, which is the work of intellect stimulated by the mind, of course, because it's mind that makes intellect active. So what subject would you apply the reasoning on? The root subject again rises from chitta. Chitta is what gives the subject for contemplation. So on the subject received from chitta, mind uses intellect to apply reasoning on it. What is right, what is wrong, what should be the way forward. For example, how do you know that the stuff in front of you is a rope? Mind captures the rope from outside through eyes, and immediately that goes in chitta. And then chitta presents prior memory about similar stuff like rope, snake, a tree branch, or whatever it may appear like at the first glance. Now, intellect compares the subject received through eyes with the subjects presented by chitta and confirms that it matches with the experience of a rope. All the thoughts running in mind in the process of identifying what it is, whether it is similar to the snake or a rope, that reasoning that runs in the mind is the work of intellect. And this is what is of reasoning thought, which is driven by intellect to come to a final decision. After the memory thought and the reasoning thought, there are thoughts like imaginative in nature. That is mind driven imaginative thought. It is produced purely by the mind with the extrapolation of the raw subjects received from the chitta. The name of the stuff, or the color of the stuff, or a quality of the stuff, or any related thought. And from then on, it starts forming new ideas around that, which we call as imagination. If you pay attention, you will find that your imagination is the mechanism of applying one subject over the other and producing something new out of such combination. Such imaginative thought is the work of mind, but the ingredient for the imagination is received from chitta only. Recollecting desires, experience, or past action from chitta, mind works on weaving them together to create something new. Such new ideation out of imagination by the mind manifests as imaginative thought. And this is what is preserved in chitta as vikalpa vritti, representing non-existing imaginary stuff. Sometimes in dream, you happen to recollect memory thought, which will be mixed with the imaginary thought as well. And then they weave together to come up with altogether a new imaginary story with all these raw subject. Such dream weaved by the mind is the reflection of further imaginative thoughts created by the mind. So this is what is like of the category of imaginative thought. So after imaginative thought, memory thought, the reasoning thought, we have another type of thought, ahankar driven actional thought. What is that? That is the pre-thought of any action. It is known as ahamvriti. Swarved says, चित्त और अहंकार है वास हृदय में हो सोई, अहम वृत्ति उत्थान में सोय रूप गति होई. The thought that drives mind and organs into action is of this type, the ahamvriti, or the actional thought. Who supplies the actional thought to the mind? It's the work of ahankar, an inner organ. It is the it is the ahamvriti which acts as a signal for action. We are all actional today because of the rise of ahamvriti by the ahankar. It is the ahankar that is responsible for every action that we perform today. And such ahamvriti, such thought that is a signal for action is called actional thought. So, in a nutshell, we discussed about various kind of thought: the memory thought, the reasoning thought, imaginative thought, and actional thought. Thank you. Should we control thought? It is something like saying, should we control heat when the fire is burning somewhere? Well, there are two sets of thoughts: one useful for the work at hand, and another the unwanted ones. When mind is set free, it overworks to generate unwanted thoughts. Needless to say, unwanted thoughts disturb the focus at work. Therefore, we certainly want to minimize unwanted thoughts, if not all. Now, given a choice, will you control heat or the source of the heat, the fire? Of course, the fire. So, should we control thought? Yes, we should, but it doesn't happen that way. We rather need to control the mind. So, controlling unwanted thought is not an option if mind is left uncontrolled. It is the mind that generates thoughts. Therefore, the mind needs to be controlled in order to have controlled thoughts. How can we control mind? This is what is the prime subject of Vihangam Yoga. If anybody wishes to learn the science of controlling mind, they must either log request for workshop at the link available in the description of this YouTube video, or write at info@vihangamyoga.org. What I personally like about Vihangam Yoga way of controlling mind is that it directly controls the mind itself. After learning where the mind is located in the body when awake. Mind has a location when you're awake, when you're dreaming, when you're in deep sleep. Have you ever heard about where is the mind located when you are in dreaming state? Which part of the body? So anybody interested for controlling mind, not thought, I repeat, it's the mind that needs to be controlled. Anybody interested for controlling mind must try Vihangam Yoga. So, should we control thought? Yeah, we need to, but that happens by controlling the mind. Thank you. How would a yogi perceive something beyond? Let us understand what is in the root of any perception. It is the consciousness of the soul that needs to establish connection with the subject in order to perceive it. In case of physical subjects, such connection is established through the channel of mind and senses. Swarved says, आत्म योग मन से रहे, मन इंद्रिय कर साथ, इंद्रिय योग जब अर्थ से विषय ज्ञान जीवनाथ. Atma or soul connects with the mind, mind with senses, and senses with the subjects. It's then the consciousness of the soul establishes connection with the physical subject for the perception. As long as soul will choose the mind and senses to establish connection with the subject, it will only be able to perceive physicality, because that's what is within the reach of body and mind. Whereas without senses and mind, the consciousness of the soul has the power to establish connection with any other consciousness as well, beyond physicality. To explore that possibility, Yogi tries to free the consciousness from the mind and senses by practicing a total inward journey, a total control of thoughts. There are two types of entities. One is of inert type, and another one is of the type of consciousness. For example, body is gross inert entity, but the spirit in the body is a consciousness. The vast creation that you see around is physicality, but that is not everything. Creation is composed of physical inert entities, but it is also pervaded by the vast consciousness of the Creator. What is the mechanism for you and me, the soul, to perceive inert subjects? It's through the outward flow of consciousness from soul to the mind, from mind to the senses, and from senses to the subject. When the soul establishes its conscious connection with the subject with the help of mind and senses, it perceives an inert subject. In such perception, soul is limited to the boundary of subjects that are within the reach of senses and mind, which is all made of inert elements. To perceive consciousness, Yogi has to free the individual consciousness from the boundaries of mind and senses and attain its own potential to reach another consciousness. This is what is exactly done in Vihangam Yoga meditation by the wisdom of Brahmavidya, where the path of meditation progresses through 5 different stages of meditation. It begins with controlling mind, so that the outward flow of consciousness, the scattering of our consciousness outward stops. Then the second stage is about purifying mind, which allow the freedom of consciousness from thoughts. Third is Kundalini awakening. The fourth is self-realization, the attainment of self-potential to perceive another consciousness. And then eventually the fifth and final is the experience of the universal consciousness, union with it. So through the inward journey of Vihangam Yoga, one is able to perceive the consciousness beyond the reach of mind and senses. Thank you. In fact, we should ask ourselves, why do we seek happiness from various sources? We jump around. One thing that used to quench us before is not sufficient anymore. In fact, as we mature, as we grow, our source of happiness is changing. And there'll be a point when we conclude that nothing in this world is sufficient for you to get completely satisfied. Such deep thirst is what drives Yogi also to explore something beyond physicality. So for quenching the incessant desire to know the truth about who am I, what is that truly I am searching, what am I like within this body, Where is the source of ultimate happiness that I'm seeking? The ancient rishis have all these various desires, the seeking, deep seeking. And when there is a seeking, there is a guide, the guide called Eternal Sadguru. It is said in Swarved, Sant न होते जगत में खो जानत भगवान कीट श्वान सम बीतता जीवन मनुज महान. If that non-physical guide, the conscious master, would not have been there, how would a blinded human being within the periphery of physicality would have ever come to this realization that there exists something called consciousness? The yogi strived to realize consciousness only upon hearing the voice from that master of consciousness, who guides the ignorant human being to the truth about the self, that you are not this physicality that you see in front of your mirror, but you are a consciousness. It is he, that master of consciousness, that brings down the wisdom of consciousness on this mortal land. It is he who makes a yogi realize that you're not a physical body, but you're a spirit who is moving from one body to another body. When the seeking of a human being only meets discouragement, disappointment, upon not finding any source of happiness sufficient enough to quench the thirst, the deep thirst of bliss that soul has. When the human being is hopeless, it is that divine master who brings down the hope by giving the technique of consciousness to reach the ultimate divine, the creator, the supreme bliss, the bliss himself that pervades through every tiny and vast creation of this universe. The bliss that soul desires to get is nowhere in this physicality, but is in the consciousness of that supreme vast consciousness, of that supreme vast creator. And this is the whole reason why a yogi strive to experience consciousness. Thank you.
So, what did we learn today? There are several takeaways from today's enlightening talk by Mr. Vijay Kumar. We learned that thoughts are nothing other than deeds of the mind. Thoughts arise when mind becomes activated by receiving consciousness from the soul. In turn, the mind activates the intellect, the chit, which is the memory store, and the ahankar, which is the ego or sense of self. These four regions, the mind, the intellect, the chit, and the ahankar, then become centers for creation of thoughts. Two or more of these centers may work together towards the creation of a thought. Should we control thoughts? Yes, we do wish to minimize unwanted thoughts, which are irritants and distractions. But we learned that without controlling the mind, thoughts cannot be controlled. We were also made aware that the preliminary stages of Vihangam Yoga meditation help to control the mind. We learned that all entities that exist are of two broad types, the inert and the conscious. We learned that it is the consciousness of our soul that perceives inert entities through the mind and senses. We also learned that our soul has the power to connect with other conscious entities that exist beyond the mind and senses when it is made free from them. We were made aware today that Vihangam Yoga is the only meditation technique that enables you, the seeker, to explore beyond your mind and senses. Finally, we got an understanding as to why a yogi wants to go beyond the mind and senses. Because there is no permanent satisfaction in the mortal world, and the incessant desire for eternal truth and happiness, and the deep seeking within drives the yogis to look beyond the mind and senses. The eternal Sadguru comes into their lives at this stage to enlighten them and take them beyond to the eternal truth and eternal bliss. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the close of today's session. We hope you enjoyed the session as much as we did creating it for you. See you next week, same time, for another interesting episode. Until then, goodbye.